on Border Security and Enforcement and the Subcommittee on Emergency Management and Technology will come to order. The purpose of this hearing is to examine the ways transnational criminal organizations engage in human trafficking solely for profit, disregarding the dignity of human life. To protect the most vulnerable, we must work together to develop a better understanding of how current border policies have enabled transnational criminal organizations to conduct large-scale human trafficking at the southwest borders, and how can we develop effective solutions to this tragedy that unfolds at our southern border? Our final witness, Dr. Jarrod Sadulski, has over 20 years of law enforcement experience, including counter-human trafficking, counterterrorism, Homeland Security, and local law enforcement. Dr. Sadulski has spent time in Central America and South America researching both human trafficking and international narcotics trafficking. Dr. Sadulski, you recognized for 5 minutes to summarize your opening statement, sir.
Chairman Higgins, Ranking Member Correa, Chairman D'Esposito, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today and to provide this testimony on human trafficking. As a doctor of criminal justice, a professor at American Military University, as well as a humanitarian, I've been conducting research on human trafficking trends in Latin America for several years. This work has led me to in-country research in South America, Central America, and the United States. As a guest of Interpol and the National Police of Colombia, I've conducted in-country research on human trafficking originating in Colombia, and I've also conducted in-country research in 4 years of humanitarian work in Central America. Specifically, the humanitarian work that I've engaged in has involved leading teams to provide training to the staff and inmates of a prison in Latin America, and specifically in Belize. Through this humanitarian work and working within the prison system of the nation's only prison, I've had the opportunity to interview and to speak with former convicted human traffickers, as well as through my research, I've had the opportunity to speak to many human trafficking victims. So today, the information that I'm presenting is a culmination of that research. There's a dangerous nexus between human smuggling and trafficking, though they're very distinct. People who are initially attempting to be smuggled in the United States can end up as trafficking victims. This occurs because of the obstacles and delays that can occur on the smuggling route and resulting in the migrant owing more money than what they have in order to pay. When that happens, they're forced into human trafficking as a means to pay off their debt once they arrive to the southwest border. This can include sex trafficking, packaging drugs in safe houses or stash houses near the border, and other forms of forced labor. For groups of people that are being smuggled into the United States, smuggled toward the southwest border, intelligence is collected from within the group. For example, you'll have a coyote, which is a smuggler himself, mixed within the migrant group that is there to collect intelligence to see who actually has the money. Once it's determined that a migrant does not have the funds to continue the process of getting to the southwest border, they're often sold to actual human traffickers for exploitation. Stash houses have an important role in human trafficking along the southwest border. They occur on both the U.S. and Mexican side. TCOs use local gang members to manage the staff houses on both sides. Safe houses could be described as a triangle, with the first house being a processing center where those forced into human trafficking are processed by having their photograph taken, the amount of debt owed is listed, as well as their personal items, passports, even clothing are taken away from them. From there, the second house that is part of this stash house triangle is where the actual exploitation occurs. A lot of that, although we focus on sex trafficking and forced labor, a lot of that involves packaging narcotics that are flowing through the southwest border. Once the debt is paid, then the victim is transferred to a third safe house. It is there they're given back their property, as well as given the opportunity to make it to their destination. TCOs create an illusion that no crime is being committed, and instead they're just attempting to have people find a better life. The system is set up to detect illegal narcotics, more so at the southwest border than it is human smuggling or trafficking. Many TCOs depend on connections that aid in the facilitation of human trafficking, that provide blanket security for everyone involved through tipping them off of law enforcement operations or other threats to their operations. One element of human trafficking that's not well known is organ harvesting. Sadly, part of my humanitarian work in Central America has revealed that there's a market for juvenile organs. One particular person that I had interviewed was involved in human trafficking at several different levels and was able to provide insight into some of these inner workings, specifically with organ trafficking. The reason why organ harvesting has become a market is due to a buyer's personal needs. For example, if someone has a family member that's dying and is unable to obtain that organ legally, they'll basically provide a custom order for a specific organ. Organ traffickers view this exploitation as a job. The former gang member who was involved in the trafficking spoke of one organ trafficker out of Mexico, Venezuela, and the Philippines. The organ trafficker would frequent homeless shelters, other shelters, encampments, and drug houses where families camped with their children. He would offer money to the parents to take the children out of that environment, and the children would never return. In one particular case, there was a 12-year-old that someone paid $15,000 for his eye. This was several years ago. The organ trafficker explained that moving children from one point to another is easy because the trafficker doesn't have to show documentation, and he did not receive resistance from the child because the parents gave permission for the child to be with the trafficker. Human trafficking continues to be a global problem due to its profitability. When a drug dealer makes a profit through selling drugs, they have to go obtain more product to make another sale. In the case of human trafficking, the same victim is exploited over and over, and the victim is able to transport themselves. Thank you for the opportunity, and I welcome your questions.
Refugees. Is this a U.S. issue or global issue?
Yes, sir. I believe it comes down to international collaboration between governments, as well as NGOs, as well as education to the migrants themselves, because I think there's a misconception in some areas of Latin America of the dangers of coming across to the United States. For example, a migrant that I recently spoke to explained that he was unaware of how dangerous it was going to be. He spoke of children and adult skeletal remains that he saw scattered throughout the route. And these are things that I think that a lot of migrants are not aware of in terms of the dangers, and I believe that is one part of the solution.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the witnesses for their testimony today, and I yield.
Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.